Have you ever stumbled across a story online that hits you so hard it doesn't even feel like just some random post? Today I was scrolling through Reddit and found a few stories like that. Way too real, way too creepy to ignore. I've got a feeling you're going to want to hear these. So, no more waiting, let's dive right in.
Story 1.
Me and Elise were never close. We had a 5-year age gap, and while I was just a kid playing with my Nintendo DS, she was always this astonishingly beautiful blonde girl. But her gaze was always lost. Transparent. Then, at a certain point, the drugs and the parties came along. My parents weren't the best, but the fights were always Elise's fault. I never really understood her, maybe I never even tried to. Obviously, and now, as an adult, I actually get that. She must have been crying for help. Maybe she was depressed. Maybe she had some personality disorder. But I guess I'll never know. I need you to understand. Elise didn't go missing in a poetic, unsolved mystery way. She ran. She left behind a note, a bag, and a house that hated her. They found her weeks later in a drainage canal 3 towns over. It was her. DNA confirmed. Maybe it was suicide. Maybe she slipped. But we never saw the body. Closed casket, they said. Mom chose a white one, carved with flowers on the sides. It was so saddening, but so beautiful. It was perfect for a beautiful girl like her. We buried her under a willow tree. I was 12, and I never stopped wondering what her last minutes were like. After years and years of therapy, I was left with a lot of grief and an uncanny feeling of calmness when I watched horror movies. It was the one thing that still made me feel something. The anxiety, the dread, the small thrill of being hunted from the safety of my sofa. It made my heart beat faster. It was better than nothing. That night, I was on a horror Discord server, bored out of my mind at 2 a.m., asking for fucked up movie recs. Not slasher gore. I wanted weird. Something that felt wrong to watch. Some guy with a pixelated anime, PFB, sent me a private link. No context, just watch alone. Use headphones. It was a .mkv file. No source. No upload date. Just one word, grievance. The thumbnail? A blurry still of a girl half submerged in water, eyes wide open like she'd just seen God. I thought I'd found the perfect way to spend my night. I guess in a way I was right. The start was slow. It seemed like an eerie build-up, but also it never seemed to start. It was weird, clearly experimental. The scene was set at night. You could hear someone breathing, and it seemed like a POV of the person breathing. That someone was frantically looking around, and their panic was increasing second by second. But they weren't moving. On the corner of the screen, I could see their feet were tied up. You could hear someone getting closer. Step by step. After maybe 5 full minutes of just faint footsteps approaching, the title appeared, Grievance, in an outdated serif font. Then, a man appeared in the frame, pacing through the grass. Cut to black. Sound still on. It was a really well-done scream. At this point, I was impressed. The screen was still black, while in the background you could hear a man and a woman struggling. When the camera finally turned toward them, I thought I was about to throw up. I didn't quite realize it at first. The woman had her back to the camera. But then, while struggling, her blonde hair shifted and revealed a badly done tattoo on her shoulder, right next to the strap of her tank top. That was fucking Elise. I was sure. I remember the huge fight she had with our parents when they found out she'd gotten that go-doffel stick and poke. And I just sat there and watched the whole movie. Helpless. Typical revenge narrative. Girl gets killed, resurrects as something else, haunts her killer. What? The actual. Fuck. I was shocked. Actually, fuck that. I was terrified. The rest of my night was restless. I spent it scouring the internet for info about Grievance. After some digging, I found it had great reviews on Reddit. People said it was a mysterious indie film, so underground that even the actors and directors' names weren't known. I found a post buried in our obscure horror, like 100 comments deep. Everyone talked about how raw the lead performance was. Too real, someone wrote. Then one guy said, that scene by the canal? Shit made me cry. How'd they get that performance? Canal. I froze. I hadn't told anyone that detail. It wasn't public. No articles ever mentioned the exact location. I looked up the canal again. News archives. Police reports. I dug through everything I could find. Then I found an old Facebook post from a kid at Elise's high school. It was from the week she disappeared. A blurry phone photo from a party. Elise was there. You could see the same tank top from the movie. Same hair. But the fucked up part? In the background, barely visible, was a man. Standing in the dark behind the trees. He looked like the guy from Grievance. I shut my laptop. The room felt too small. I took a break from horror after that. For like a week. Then I caved. I searched the link again. Gone. The Discord user? Deleted. But the file was still in my downloads. Just sitting there. I opened it again. Just to skim through. Just to be sure. But this time it was different. There were no actors. No screaming. Just a canal. 10 minutes. Uncut. Static camera. Wind moving the branches. Nothing else. Then, at minute 7:23, Elise walks into frame. Older. Pale. Soaked. She looks up. Not at the camera. At me. Like she could see through the screen. She raises her hand, and the footage glitches. Freezes. Black screen. Then one final frame. A gravestone. Mine. Full name. Birth date. No death date. Just a countdown timer. Starting from 72 hours. I didn't sleep. Didn't eat. That was 3 days ago. When the timer hit 0, nothing happened. For a moment, I thought I'd made it all up. A stress hallucination. A weird ARG. I took a shower. Got dressed. Started to laugh about it. Then I got a text from my mom. Hey, sweetie. Have you visited your sister recently? I had a weird dream, and she was in it. So, I finally decided to go to the tree today, and I found fresh flowers. Was it you? She attached a photo of the willow tree. Our old backyard. There was a bouquet of lilies on Elise's grave. We hadn't been there in years. I hadn't told her anything. I went to the mirror. My reflection didn't move with me. Behind Mebler, but there was the canal. And a figure. Drenched. Blonde. I turned. Nothing. I turned back to the mirror. Closer. Not smiling. Just watching me. It's been happening more. I see her in reflections, in dreams, in the gaps between frames on my screen. Last night, I saw myself sleeping from outside the window. But I live on the 3rd floor. Tonight, I'm watching the video again. I don't know why. Maybe I want answers. Maybe I want to see if it ends differently this time. The file changed names. It's no longer Grievance. It's called Reunion.mkv. I think this time, I'm not watching her. She's watching me.
Story 2.
I was devastated when Dad died. I know it's cliche, but he was the best parent that I could have asked for. Though his health had been declining for a while, and we knew that he didn't have long, it didn't make it any easier. I love my father. I think that's part of what made the VHS tapes so shocking. I was visiting Mom, taking a bit of time off from work to grieve, when she revealed them to me. Jeremy, I need to talk to you, she said, slowly taking a seat at the table. I rushed to help her in her chair, but she waved me off. Despite how bad her arthritis was, she was adamant that she was still just as lithe and nimble as a 19-year-old girl. Is something wrong? It sounds serious, I said once she'd had a chance to adjust herself. Mom's expression seemed bleaker than usual. Grim, even. She hadn't been the same after Dad's passing. But this was something else. Something darker. Well, not exactly. Your father asked me to do this. He made me promise that if I outlived him, I was to give you these tapes. If it was up to me, I would have thrown them out ages ago. No one needs to know what's on them. But this was his dying wish, and I have to respect that. Mom nodded to a box lying on the kitchen table. I glanced at it, then turned back to her, unsure of what to make of her revelation. Okay. It's nothing illegal, is it? Mom, this is kind of freaking me out. She stared at the table before her, her eyes a contemplating mix of emotions. I can't say for certain. A gnawing sense of unease began to twist my stomach into knots. All right, if they're that bad, I'm sure you won't want to watch them with me. Can I borrow your VHS player for a few days? I'll bring it back when I'm done. Yes, but Jeremy, please know before you watch those tapes that your father was a different man back then. I don't want those videos to change your perception of him. I took a deep breath, considering her words. I can't promise anything without seeing them, but I hope they don't. I didn't watch the VHS tapes for months. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. If they were really that shocking, I didn't know if I ever wanted to see them. Mom didn't bring it up again, but she seemed different after that day. Every time she looked at me, I could see shame hiding beneath her gaze. I felt sorry for her. This wasn't her fault. Now, I don't know how to feel. After half a year, I had completely forgotten about them. The tapes sat on my bookshelf, gathering dust, blending in with the fixtures in the room. It was my girlfriend who reminded me that they were even there. "Jay, why you have a box of VHS tapes? Have you been watching naughty videos behind my back?" She huffed, crossing her arms. "What? No, I haven't even seen those yet. I got them from my dad when he passed." Emma's look of suspicion melted away as her cheeks flushed with color. "I'm so sorry. I wouldn't have brought it up if I'd known. Do you want to watch them together? I know this has been really tough for you, and I want to support you any way that I can." I mulled it over for a moment before making my decision. "Thanks for the offer. I really appreciate you being here for me, but I think this is something that I need to do alone." Emma pursed her lips and nodded, before pulling me into a warm embrace. I watched the tapes that night. I decided that I'd been putting it off for long enough. Best to get it over with, right? It took longer than I'd like to admit to get the VHS player set up. It wasn't difficult, but technology and I do not see eye to eye. I took a deep breath as I popped in the first tape, sank into my sofa, and pressed play on the remote. The video began with a pitch-black screen. A faint rustling followed before Dad came into frame, his face too close to the camera. He placed his camcorder down before backing away. "This is trial number 1. Jeremy, if you're watching, then I'm probably not around anymore. I don't think anyone is going to believe this. Hell, I don't even believe it myself. But I think I caught my big break. If I'm right, then I may have found the cure for death." "That's right." He grinned. "I think I've discovered the compound for immortality." Even through the poor quality, I could see a manic gleam in my father's eyes. This man wasn't the same one who raised me. He couldn't be. Dad worked in medicine, but he had never uttered a peep about any of this. And that expression, I barely recognized him. Dad stepped off screen for a moment, and my heart dropped. Behind him, strapped to an operating table, was a child me. I was unconscious in my parents' basement, blissfully unaware of what my father was doing. I leaned forward, horrified, yet morbidly curious. Dad walked back in a frame, wielding a syringe filled with a liquid blacker than night. It was so dark that it seemed to consume the light surrounding it. "Here it is, my magnum opus. If my theory is correct, this compound should have the ability to regenerate cells. In short, it should eliminate the possibility of death by natural causes. Cells will no longer wither away. In other words, the body will not age past maturity. I pray that this works." My heart hammered in my chest as Dad plunged the needle into my arm. Almost immediately afterward, my body began to writhe and convulse on the operating table. Dad's face dropped. He clearly hadn't anticipated that. The convulsions stopped as quickly as they began, much to his relief. But then my eyes shot open. They were completely black. A deep, inhuman cackling erupted from my lips. Dad went pale as a ghost. "Thank you," I said in a voice that was not my own. "You have given me a vessel, foolish human." The table shook violently, my arms and legs flailing in their constraints. I continued to cackle in that disturbing bellow as Dad watched helplessly. "I hope you know what you've done. This child will never be rid of me. Never. I may lie dormant for years, waiting until the time is right, but know that you have sealed his fate." Then the recording cut off. I stared at the blank screen, unable to comprehend what I had just witnessed. That was impossible. It had to be a skit or a fabrication. I couldn't accept that what I had just seen was real. I had to know the truth. I ejected the first tape from the VHS player and replaced it with the second. I watched for hours. Every tape afterward was a near replica of the one before it. Instead of trying to find the serum for immortality, Dad was attempting to cure me of my affliction. Each video played out the same way. He would explain what the drug was, why it was supposedly going to work, and my body would writhe on the table. The demon, or whatever ungodly creature that was, would return and mock my father, then the video would end. By the time I reached the last tape, my hope was wearing thin. Dad had failed dozens of times. Countless different injections had no effect in reversing the damage. My breath hitched in my throat as I pressed play on the final video. Jeremy, I'm sorry. I'm all out of ideas. What began as an experiment born out of love quickly soured into a curse that you have to bear. I never should have tried this. The guilt of my actions is eating me alive. He took a moment to wipe away the tears welling in his eyes. I don't know what else to do. I've been trying to fix my mistake for 12 years. You're going off to college in a few days, and without you living under my roof, I won't be able to conduct these experiments any longer. I'm sorry, son. I failed you. That was it. The video cut to black, and I was left to sit there and think about what I had just seen. It's been 4 months since then. Over the past week, I've been blacking out. Huge chunks of my day have been disappearing from my memory without a trace. I'm not sure what exactly is going on, but I think it's related to Dad's experiments. I don't know what it wants with me, but I'm terrified because I think that thing from the tapes has finally awakened. https www.reddit.com/junkie123.
Story 3.
The visitation room is cold. It's a stark, blank space where a glass wall separates us from the inmates, and the only physical connection between a mother and her son happens through a gray telephone. I sit on a hard plastic chair and wait for Adam to come in. I don't even know what I'm supposed to feel. Since he did what he did 2 weeks ago, it's like my life has been put on pause and my body's been stuck in a state of numbness. I haven't seen him yet. I watch him enter through the door, head down, the prison uniform clearly hanging off his 145-pound frame. A tall, intimidating officer escorts him to the seat and stands guard behind him. Through the glass, I stare at him, but he doesn't look up right away. He's Ashimita Mother Nose. We both pick up the phones. Hi, son, I begin, keeping my voice neutral. How are they treating you here? It's okay, Mom, he replies. I probably deserve it. His answer catches me off guard, and we sit in silence for a few moments. I don't understand why you did it, I say, my control slipping as tears begin to well up in my eyes. But I'll always love you. You're still my son. As soon as I finish speaking, he drops the phone, buries his head in his hands, and begins to sob uncontrollably, like he did when he was 10. Then he picks the phone up again. Those kids I killed at school, Mom, he begins. You have to understand they deserved it. They needed to be taken out the way they were. The officer behind him overhears the conversation and keeps a sharp eye on Adam. If they were bullying you, son, that's terrible, I tell him. But that doesn't mean they deserve to die, and they weren't bullying me, he yells, cutting me off, his outburst drawing the attention of nearby inmates and visitors. The guard steps in, grabbing him by the shoulder. That's enough, Adam. Time to go. Mom, he whispers through the line before he is dragged out of the room. You need to look into the glove compartment. I walk out of the room, dazed. Was my son paranoid? Hallucinating? I storm out of the facility and get in my car. The long drive back to the city is a blur. My mind spins. How didn't I see this? How could I not have known what he could do? As a single mom, always tired from work, he just seemed like a quiet, geeky teen. What snaps me back to reality is noticing a car that has been behind me since I left the prison. A black vehicle, driven by a Cleanshaven, military-looking man in dark glasses, follows me. He looks eerily familiar to the guard from the visitation room. I take several random turns, and he stays on my tail. I pull in my neighborhood store. He parks at a distance, still in view. I rush in, grab what I need, and get in line, still trying to make sense of what the hell is happening. Why is he following me? They already have Adam. As I wait in line, I hear someone call my name from behind, and I jump in fright. It's not the man from the car, but I almost wish it were. It's a pale woman with a blank expression, Jenna, the mother of one of the 3 kids Adam killed at the school shooting. I freeze. Hi, Claire, she says. It takes me a second. Jenna, how are you? Not very good. She replies not bitterly, just honestly. I flinch. Hey, I just want to say I'm really sorry for your loss, I begin. What my son did was unforgivable. And Claire, please, she cuts in. This isn't your fault. We both lost our sons that day. She takes my hand in hers. From one mother to another, she tells me, leaning in, we need to help each other. Then she hugs Mess so tightly, I nearly collapse into tears. No one had shown me that kind of compassion until now. I leave the store with new strength, ready to go straight to that car and confront the man who had been following me, but he's gone. Thank God. I get in my car, and as I'm ready to get home, I remember Adam's words, and I check the glove compartment. There's nothing unusual in there except for a small metallic device. A flash drive. Back home, I go straight to my laptop. It's already dark. I know exactly why Adam would have hidden the USB drive in the car. His room, computers, phone, and even video game were all seized and searched the day after the events. Even my own laptop was taken. I had to get a new one from work. What I don't know is what he needed to hide. My hands shake as I plug it in and open a folder full of images. They're photos of the 3 kids who died mostly candid shots, capturing them in normal moments at school. The same 3 always appeared, 2 boys and 1 girl. The pictures, likely taken on Adam's phone, showed them eating lunch, walking home, studying at the library. Just ordinary stuff. Was Adam stalking them? They didn't look like bullies. Then the photos started to get weird. One of the boys kissing a girl someone else, not from the 3 behind the football field. Holding hands. Private. Then suddenly, one set in a bleak concrete space. The 3 kids, soaked in blood, standing over what looked like the girl from before dead. Her body ripped to pieces on the floor. There was something strange in their eyes. In the photos, they were solid white. I had to adjust in my chair, rattled. Then more. The trio luring people. A janitor, an old woman, another child. The last pictures in the folder showed them emerging from an alley, shirts stained red, those blank, glowing eyes again. The photos were clearly taken in hiding. I nearly threw up. Was this what Adam meant? Were these kids, and what were they doing? That's when I heard the noise of my front door opening. Is someone there? I called out from my room. Only Adam and I lived here. I had no idea who it could be. I get no answer, and the thought that it might be the man in the black car sent a chill down my spine. I walked slowly down the hallway. I just called the police, so whoever you are, leave now, I shouted, bluffing. My phone was in the kitchen. When I reached the hallway, I saw a figure standing still at the front door. It was Jenna, the mother of one of Adam's victims. One of the kids in the photos. Jenna? I asked, confused. Do you need something? Her face was blank, robotic, emotionless. She took a few steps toward me. I don't know what Adam told you or what he left behind as evidence, she said, voice flat. But I can't let you keep it. Then her eyes turned white, just like the 3 kids in the picture. And my body, desperate to run, couldn't move. It just stood there, every muscle in me locked tight in the same position. It was when her eyes changed. Even my eyelids stopped working. I couldn't blink. I felt like a statue, except for my heartbeat, which had gone completely wild. Jenna walked slowly, savoring my frozen panic. Don't even try, Claire, she said with a grin, now just 5 feet away. Humans are such pathetic creatures. She raised her hands, and her fingers began to shift, turning into blades, thick and gleaming like solid steel. That's when I heard the gunshots. Multiple and quick. If I could, I would have closed my eyes shut, but I saw Jenna collapse in front of me, riddled with bullets. The man from the black car, the same guard who had stood with Adam, was behind her, holding a gun, his eyes locked on her body. He must have fired 6 rounds because Jenna was lying in a pool of blood. He stepped closer, still aiming at her head. Don't do this, please. I'll stay still, she begged, but he pulled the trigger one last time. That's when my body unfroze, and I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, sobbing uncontrollably. The man knelt beside me and placed a hand on my shoulder, gently. Miss Claire, he said carefully, I know this is a lot to process, but you're not safe here. What your son uncovered, it's not from this world.
Story 4.
During the holidays, I usually put on a bit of weight. All that good food is hard to put down. And during summertime, I always try to walk off the extra pounds. Not to mention that I had a beautiful wife at home to stay slim and trim for. So to start my day, I got up early and went for my walk. It's about 2 miles long from my house to a nearby cemetery. After turning around, I get about 4 miles in total. It was safe to say that it was always a surefire way to lose weight fast. Today was going to be hot, so getting it out of the way early was the easiest way. The road was straight and narrow, and there wasn't a lot of traffic. It didn't take long for me to make it to the cemetery. It was a pretty huge graveyard. About 800 or 900 bodies wouldn't be a stretch. You'd think I could do my walking there. But to me, that seems a little creepy. And today, I did notice something out of the way. Lying on the ground by the front gate was a bouquet of roses. They seemed to be in pretty good shape, like someone had recently dropped them. There was a garbage can nearby, but they were too new for the trash. If I left them on the ground, they might get ruined. So I picked them up and walked into the cemetery. I figured if I searched around, I might be able to see whose grave they were meant for. But there were so many rows, and I was already pretty winded. So maybe a different idea was in order. I walked a few lines and read the tombstones. The plan was to find a kid's grave and place them there. But as I made my way, a certain plot caught my eye. It was of a young woman in her mid-20s. She and I were close in age. On her tombstone, it read, "A precious life cut short." I didn't know this person, but regardless, she had my sympathies. Something told me it wasn't anything good that put her here so soon. So I placed the bouquet on her grave and paid my respects. Afterwards, I left and walked back home. You'd think this was where the story ends, but my troubles had only just begun. Back at home, my wife and I had a nice life going. We'd been married for 3 years and loved the house we settled on. Everything from the neighborhood to the nearby town was perfect. It was an awesome place to raise a family, which is what we had planned. But our peace would slowly descend into chaos as days passed. It started small. My wife and I would hear strange knocks and bangs around the house. We put it off as the house settling or rodents. But over time, stranger things started happening. We'd wake up to find photos of us shattered and strewn about the room. When she talked to her sister, she was quick to say our house could be haunted. But my wife and I didn't really believe in the paranormal and tried using reason to rule things out. Very quickly, it seemed like all reason was going out the window. Late at night, while in bed, we'd hear the sounds of crying coming from our living room. I'd investigate only to find nothing. Afterwards, the cries only grew louder. My wife would have sharp burning sensations going down her back. When we lifted her shirt, there were scratch marks in sets of 3. At this point, even I had to admit that something strange was going on. We didn't have any animals, so there was no logical explanation for how this happened. I tried searching for answers on the internet, but all I found were ghost stories and ball of light videos. My wife ended up calling her sister, who referred us to a local medium. I'm not gonna lie, as soon as we went to the place, I felt like a fool, about to ask someone who talked to the dead about what's going on in my house. But I guess for my wife's safety, I could shrug and go along with it. The so-called medium was an older woman with gray hair. She had on lots of bracelets and a crystal necklace. She had on heavy makeup with a bunch of strange symbols tattooed on her arms. She looked at my wife and saw the worry on her face. She promised she'd do everything she can to help us figure this out. When she looked over at me, though, her jaw dropped. She claimed she found her problem right away. I had a spirit attached to me. She said it was of a young woman who died much too soon. She said the woman's face was contorted and deformed. The woman claimed to talk to her, asking her what she wanted with us. Apparently, the spirit gave a simple reply. She wanted me. I got tired of listening to all this nonsense. I got up and shook my head. I told her I appreciated the help, but I just didn't buy all this. The woman assured me I had an attachment, and even if I didn't believe, she wanted to help. The supposed psychic said a prayer and told me to take heed. She said this spirit was dangerous and wanted me all to itself. I thanked her and told my wife we should go. That night, everything seemed peaceful enough. My wife and I watched a movie, ate dinner, and went to bed. It was while I slept, though, that I had a strange dream. I was lying in my bed, looking up at the ceiling. I couldn't move, but I heard something rustling beneath the blankets. Whatever it was slowly crawled up my paralyzed body until we met face to face. It was a woman with gray skin and long black hair. She wore a tattered white dress with her hair covering her face. She lowered herself to my ear and started to whisper. She told me that she loved the flowers and was glad to accept them. She explained that no one had ever shown her love until me. Was she referring to the roses I found at the cemetery? I tried to talk and explain that this was all a coincidence, but I couldn't. She continued by saying that we could be together forever. But first my wife had to go. That's when she showed me her face. The woman's features were horrifying. Her nose was crooked. Her eyes bulged out of her head, and her teeth were long and protruded from her mouth. Her looks favored that of a wicked witch more than a human. It seemed that everything the medium said was true. I was absolutely terrified. She then leaned down and gave me a kiss on the cheek before speaking. "Don't worry, my love. When you awake, she'll be gone. Then our time will begin," she promised. After this, everything went black. I couldn't see or hear anything. I know this was just a dream, but I couldn't help but worry for my wife. I forced myself awake, and I'm glad I did, as what awaited me was something straight out of a horror movie. My wife was levitating in the air with her own blonde hair wrapped around her neck. I rushed into action, attempting to pull her down, but she wouldn't budge. I tried yanking the hair from around her neck, but it was pulled too tight. I was desperate and scared. Meanwhile, my wife was turning blue. I knew I didn't have time to call for help, but how could I save her? My thoughts were racing and the adrenaline filled my body. It was then that I thought back to my dream. I was the one she wanted. She mistook the random kindness of a stranger as a confession. Realizing this, I knew what to do next. I planted my feet firmly on the ground and yelled, "Let go of my wife right now. I don't love you. I'll never love you," I shouted. All of a sudden, I heard a screech so loud the house began to shake. Our floral-patterned wallpaper peeled and drawers opened and slammed on their own. It was obvious that I angered her, but my wife was still in danger. With tears in my eyes, I cried out even louder than before. "Get out of my house right now. I command you to leave." Suddenly, everything went quiet and my wife dropped to the floor. I rushed to her aid as she struggled to catch her breath. I knew it was over as I held her in my arms. Call a hunch, but the atmosphere felt different, peaceful even. As time moved on, my wife and I grew even closer. We're expecting our first child any day now. There was no more activity, and I stayed far away from that cemetery. Recently, I did some digging to learn more about the woman. Apparently, she was born during the 1800s.
Story 5.
Have you ever wondered if a place can breathe? Not the way trees rustle when the wind moves through them, or the creeks of old would expanding in the sun. I mean, really breathe. Like the land itself is inhaling slowly, holding it in, waiting, watching. That's how Whispering Seasons Park felt the first time I stepped through its gate. The kind of silence that makes your skin itch. Like the quiet is just the sound of something holding its breath. Like it's been waiting for you. Not in a comforting way, but like a trap that's grown patient. And I didn't go there looking for thrills or nostalgia or some feel-good seasonal vibes. I went because of a letter. It arrived on a Thursday. I remember that because it had been raining all morning and my cheap mailbox was leaking again. Most of the junk mail inside was soggy beyond recognition, but one envelope was bone dry. Plain white. No return address. No name. Just my apartment number written in blocky, printed letters. I opened it, half expecting a scam or some cryptic coupon offer. Instead, I pulled out a single sheet of paper folded twice, thick and yellowed like it came from an old filing cabinet. There was a faint, almost ghosted logo at the top. Whispering Seasons Park, now hiring for seasonal help beneath that, in clean black ink. We remember your application. A position is opened. 1 week. 7,000. Housing included. You will follow the rules. Failure to follow them will result in immediate dismissal. I stared at it. Read it again. Then again. I'd never applied to any theme park. Hell, I hadn't even heard of one called Whispering Seasons. But I had just lost my job at the hardware store. My landlord was blowing up my phone about rent. I had 23.17 in my checking account. No prospects. No backup plan. There's a moment where fear stops feeling like panic and starts feeling like gravity, like it's pulling you somewhere you don't want to go, but can't resist. That's what this felt like. At the bottom of the letter was an address and 7 rules. Rules for seasonal workers, Whispering Seasons, Park 1. You must not be outside between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. 2. If a ride is running by itself, do not approach it. 3. Do not enter the autumn hall after midnight, no matter what you hear. 4. If you hear laughter coming from the petting zoo, leave that area immediately. 5. Between 1 p.m. and 1:15 p.m., Do not speak to anyone wearing green face paint. 6. If you find leaves falling indoors, follow them but only if they're red. 7. The man in the harvest mask is not an employee. Do not make eye contact. It didn't look like a joke. It looked institutional, official in that outdated kind of way, like it came from an office that hadn't updated its equipment since the 80s. My fingers hovered over the paper, tempted to crumple it, toss it, and walk away. But that desperate, broken, sleep-deprived part of meth part that had started scanning Craigslist for plasma donation centers had already made up its mind. So I packed my duffel bag. The next morning, I was driving through a narrow stretch of highway that curved like a snake through dense, mist-choked woods. No signs, no gas stations, just a cold fog that seemed to press against the windows like it was trying to get inside. And then I saw it, a rusted metal archway, half covered in vines, hidden behind trees like it had been trying to vanish from the world. Beneath the arch, hanging crookedly on a chain, was a weather-warped wooden sign. Staff only, that was it. No ticket booth, no welcome center, not even the name of the park. The moment I stepped through that gate, the wind stopped. Not slowed, stopped. The air went still. Heavy, oppressive. It was like entering a vacuum sealed off from the rest of the world. Even the trees looked like they were holding their breath. He was waiting for me just inside the gate. A man in a brown uniform that looked starched and ancient, like it had survived a few world wars. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his smile, it didn't reach his eyes. They were glassy, unreadable, too still. "You're the new hire," he said without any hint of question. He handed me a folded map and a dull gold pen that read, "Seasonal Crew," in small block letters. "I'm Vernon. Management," he added, like it was a statement of fact, not an introduction. "Stick to your route. Follow the rules. Don't wander. No paperwork. No ID check. No training. No safety briefing. Just Vernon pointing toward a dirt path behind the carousel and walking away. The staff dorm was a wooden cabin tucked behind a rusting carousel. It looked like something out of a horror movie. Single bulb overhead, cracked windows, a mattress thinner than my willpower. No schedule, no list, just a clipboard on the nightstand that said task assignments will be delivered as needed. No shift time, no job title, just you'll work when we tell you to. It should have been enough to make me leave right then. But desperation fogs your instincts. Makes you ignore the rotten smell under the floorboards because the room is free. Makes you pretend you don't hear dragging footsteps outside your window at night because you really need that paycheck. That first night, nothing happened. I lay on a mattress, eyes fixed on the ceiling, counting slow seconds. The silence outside was so complete that even my own heartbeat sounded intrusive. Around 2 a.m., I remembered Rule 1. You must not be outside between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. I stayed put, pulled the covers up, and squeezed my eyes shut. But my ears didn't cooperate. Scrape. Scuff. I thought I heard something. Footsteps. Slow. Uneven. Dragging ones. I told myself it was the wind. Maybe just the trees creaking. A stray animal. My imagination. I didn't sleep. By morning, I had convinced myself the rules were just for atmosphere. A way to keep workers in line, maybe. Psychological trickery. I told myself that until day 2. Day 2 began like a breath you don't remember taking. I woke up disoriented, if you could call what I did waking up. I hadn't really slept, more like hovered just beneath the surface of consciousness. Too wired to dream, too drained to move. There was a new task note waiting outside my cabin, pinned to the door with a rusted nail. Summer District Trash Sweep. 12 p.m. until finished. Do not leave assigned zone. Summer District was straight out of a dying carnival. Faded yellow booths leaned like crooked teeth. Water rides coated in mildew sat dormant. Their once bright tubes sun-bleached and cracking. Plastic palm trees, bent and broken, waved in the absence of wind. The whole place stank of hot rubber, old sugar, and something else underneath, something metallic and wet. There were no guests, not one other employee in sight. Just that same eerie stillness hanging over everything, like the world had been paused. Even the seagulls seemed to avoid this place. I kept sweeping, eyes flicking between shadows and my watch. because Rule 5 haunted me more than I wanted to admit. Between 1 p.m. and 1:15 p.m., do not speak to anyone wearing green face paint. It was too specific, too real. Rules like that don't come from nowhere. I checked my watch again, 12:59 p.m. The minute hand clicked forward like a loaded gun. At exactly 1:02 p.m., I saw him. He was standing at the far end of the midway, just beyond an abandoned hot dog stand. His entire face was painted green sloppy and thick like someone had used finger paint. Even his lips were coated. No expression. Not quite blank, but something close. Something broken. His mouth was slightly open, his eyes wrong. Empty and still, like they hadn't blinked in a long time. He started walking toward me. Casual, slow steps. The kind of walk people use when they think they own the space between you. I looked down, pretended to sweep. My grip tightened on the broom. The muscles in my back screamed to run, but I kept moving mechanically. "Hey," he called out, his voice flat and artificial. "You dropped something." I didn't look up, didn't answer. Just pushed dirt that wasn't there. "Hey," he said again, sharper now. "Come back." My pulse slammed against my ribs. My mouth went dry. Still, I kept moving. "You dropped your face," he growled. That stopped me cold. Then came the laugh. If you can even call it that. It started high, like a giggle, then dropped into a thick, choking sound like someone laughing with a throat full of water. It echoed off the empty booths and broken ride panels like a children's playground collapsing. I bolted. I didn't think, I just ran. I didn't look back. At 1:16 p.m., I stopped. He was gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. Again. The park didn't have clocks, but I knew it was close to midnight when the wind picked up finally. It rattled the cabin walls, whispered through the cracks like it was trying to say something. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the list of rules I had taped to the wall. That's when I noticed something was off. There were 8 rules now. I didn't remember a new letter. I didn't remember writing anything down. But there was typed in the same font, same spacing, like it had always been there. 8. If your reflection frowns when you smile, hide. Do not let it follow you. I grabbed the original from my duffel bag, the one that came in the envelope. 7 rules, just like before. But the copy on my wall, 8. The paper even looked aged, yellowed more than it had been this morning. The corners curled like it had been hanging there for years. I didn't have time to process it, because that's when something tapped on the window. Tap, then silence. Tap, slower, like a fingernail. I peeked through the blinds. No one was there, but the ground outside looked wrong. Too dark, wet, even though it hadn't rained. And the grass was bent in 2 different directions, like someone had been pacing in a circle. I checked my phone. 2:11 a.m. My stomach turned to stone. Rule 1. You must not be outside between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. I stepped away from the window and sat on the floor, back against the bed, trying to steady my breathing. The doorknob began to turn, slow and deliberate, clicking back and forth. Then it began to turn again, then back, then again. No knock, no voice, no footsteps, just the metal twisting quietly like someone testing it. Over and over. Again, I backed into the corner of the room, sat on the floor and covered my ears. My breathing was ragged. I couldn't look at the door anymore. I was convinced it would open if I saw it move. It didn't stop for nearly 20 minutes. Eventually, it stopped. I didn't sleep a second. By the 4th day, I was a mess. I hadn't slept more than an hour at a time. I had started seeing things, people, just standing still in the distance, not moving. Sometimes they blinked. Sometimes they didn't. My next area was called the Autumn Hall, a giant indoor pavilion made to look like a permanent Halloween festival. Plastic skeletons, animatronic pumpkins, fake leaves glued to every surface. Fog machines. It was big, dark, musty. The assignment was simple. Clean up guest debris near the back corner. I worked fast. Didn't want to be in there long. The air was too still. The lights flickered on their own. And the soundtrack, some looping, off-brand spooky music skipped every 30 seconds. I was just about finished when I heard it. A whisper, soft, like someone exhaling my name inside a dream. And then a soft knocking sound. Faint, but unmistakable. It echoed from the far side of the hall, near the harvest maze. I glanced at my phone. It was 12:06 a.m. And I remembered Rule 3. Do not enter the autumn hall after midnight, no matter what you hear. I backed away from the sound, dropped my broom without meaning to, and then I saw him. A figure tall, unmoving, standing at the entrance to the harvest maze. He wore a burlap harvest mask, stitched with black thread around the mouth. Carved eye holes shaped like slits. No part of his skin was visible, just that mask, and a coat the color of rotted hay. He tilted his head, but not like a person. It was too sharp, too sudden, like something had tugged a string and his neck had no bones. I couldn't breathe, couldn't blink, because I remembered Rule 7. The man in the harvest mask is not an employee. Do not make eye contact. But I couldn't look away. I didn't break eye contact. I couldn't. It felt like something was pulling my head forward, forcing my eyes into his. Not hypnosis, something stronger, like a hook behind my thoughts. Then he took a step. The fog near his feet twitched, twisted, moved like it had its own muscles. My knees buckled. I blinked, and he was gone. Just gone. All that remained was a trail of red leaves, spiraling into the shadows near the back corridor. And then it hit me. Rule 6. If you find leaves falling indoors, follow them, but only if they're red. I stood there shaking, stuck between two kinds of fear. What happens if I don't follow them? And what happens if I do? But I followed. The trail of red leaves led into a narrow service corridor I had never seen before. It shouldn't have existed. I'd been through the autumn hall earlier that day. There was no back passage then. But now, the air was colder. The lights buzzed above me with the low hum of dying electricity. My breath came out in white plumes. Each leaf on the floor was too perfect. No wear, no tear, just vivid crimson, untouched by time or footsteps. It was like someone had carefully arranged them one by one. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. I passed what felt like 5 exit doors, but none opened. They were sealed or fake set pieces maybe. The walls grew tighter, more claustrophobic, like the building itself was closing in around me. Then I saw her. A girl, maybe 10 or 11. Pale skin, barefoot, wearing a faded Whispering Seasons staff shirt that hung off her like a hospital gown. She stood perfectly still at the end of the hall, one red leaf pinched between her fingers. I stopped. Are you okay? I asked, my voice barely louder than a whisper. She didn't answer. Instead, she raised the leaf slowly, pressed it against her face like a mask. When she pulled it away, it wasn't her face anymore. It was mine, but dead, gray, dried out, skin like cracked clay, mouth hanging open in a permanent, silent scream. Her eyes were rolled back into sockets. Then she spoke, but not with her mouth. Her voice came from inside the walls, like it had been recorded through a dying speaker and played back from a tunnel made of ash. He watches you when you blink. My throat constricted like it had swallowed ice. I backed away. The lights overhead began to flicker violently, then popped one by one, plunging the hall behind me into darkness. I ran. I don't remember which way I turned, or how far I sprinted, or whether the hallway changed behind me. But eventually, I slammed through a side door and spilled out into the cold night air. I didn't stop. I ran back to the cabin, threw open the door. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely grip the zipper on my duffel bag. I didn't care about the money anymore. I didn't care about Vernon. I just wanted out. But something was wrong. The air inside the cabin smelled sweet, sickly, like burnt fruit or overripe meat. The mirror hanging just above the dresser was smeared with fingerprints. From the inside, I froze. That hadn't been there before. The glass had been clean. I would have noticed. I inched closer, heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. Just to prove it wasn't real, I forced myself to smile. A weak, shaky grin. My reflection didn't smile back. It frowned, exactly like Rule 8 warned. If your reflection frowns when you smile, hide. Do not let it follow you. I stepped back. The reflection didn't. It just stood there, watching me. Then it moved, not mimicking moving. Its hand reached forward and pressed against the inside of the glass. The mirror began to warp around its arm, like it was pushing through jelly. My breath hitched. My legs finally obeyed. I grabbed the nearest chair and hurled it. Glass exploded across the floor like ice, And for a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw something standing behind it. But when the shards settled, all I saw was the wall. No hole, no passage, just empty, cracked plaster. That was the last straw. I grabbed what I could, me bag, my boots, my sanity, and I ran. The gate wasn't far. My legs burned, but adrenaline carried me faster than I thought I could move. The vines were thicker now. They'd grown up the metal arch, curling like veins around bone. Some of them pulsed faintly, like they were alive. I clawed my way up and over, skin tearing against thorns and rusted edges. I dropped onto the other side with a grunt and didn't stop running. The woods stretched in every direction. I picked a path. Any path. Just a way. Branches slapped my face. Roots caught my feet. I fell more than once, but kept getting up. After what felt like hours, I saw it. The gate. The same rusted arch. The same crooked sign. Staff only. I had looped back. I tried another path. Then another. Same result. Every direction. Every ton back to the park. And that's when I noticed the trees. Every leaf was red. No green. No brown. Just endless, blood-colored foliage fluttering in the windless air. They weren't part of a season. They were a signal. The park had changed. It had shifted, adapted. It wasn't autumn or summer or spring. It was me. I'm riding this from inside the carousel now. It hasn't moved in hours, but it hums sometimes, like it's breathing or waiting. I've torn the rules sheet off the wall. It doesn't matter anymore. It changed again. There's a 9th rule now, typed just like the rest. 9. If you think you've escaped, you haven't. The park has a new season now, and it's named after you. I don't know how long I've been here. The sun doesn't rise like it used to. Time drips instead of ticking. Sometimes I hear footsteps on the gravel outside the carousel. Sometimes I hear my own voice calling from the woods. And just once I saw someone walk past wearing my face. But it wasn't a mask. It was skin. So if you ever get a strange letter in the mail, no return address, no signature, just a tempting offer and a list of rules that read more like warnings, burn it. Because Whispering Seasons Park doesn't just hire help. It collects stories. It takes people who don't follow the rules and turns them into attractions. You won't just work there. You'll become one of the seasons. You'll become one of the attractions. And eventually, someone else will follow the red, leave straight to you. That's it for today's creepy Reddit tales. Before we go, I just want to say a quick thanks to all of you for watching, liking, and sticking around. You guys keep this channel going, and I'll be back soon with more stories that'll make your skin crawl. Drop a comment if you've got your own spooky tale to share, and I'll see you in the next one.